All right, estudiantes, let's talk about our notes here. So we are going to go through two verbs here, ser and estar. You've learned these verbs before. As you can see, both of these verbs mean to be. So since they have the same exact definition, we're going to talk about when would you use ser, when would you use estar, since they mean the same thing. So before we talk about kind of different reasons of each, let's just review how we conjugate them first. You have learned these before, so this should be a review. I'm just going to put ser in this first chart here and estar in the second chart. So for ser, our forms are, we have soy. Remember that is I am. Eres. Oops, I don't want this underlined. We'll fix that. Es for el, ella, usted form. Somos for nosotros. Vosotros, we have sois. There's no accent mark here for vosotros. And then son for ellos, ellas, ustedes. For the conjugated forms for estar, we have estoy. And we have estás. Remember, we do need accent marks for most of the forms for estar. Está. For nosotros, we have estamos. Vosotros, we have estáis. And then ellos, ellas, ustedes, están. So if you notice for estar, yo and nosotros do not need accent marks. The rest of the forms of your verbs do. For the verb ser, no accent marks are needed. So when we're looking at this, if we want to say I am in Spanish, yo soy would be I am. Yo estoy also means I am. You are would be tú eres or tú estás. If we want to say he or she is, we could say es, or we could also say está. So as you can see, these definitions of our conjugated forms are the same exact definitions. We just need to choose now. If I want to say I am, since I have two options with soy or estoy, it depends on what I'm trying to say in Spanish, and that will let me know which form of the verb I need to use. So on your notes here, we have kind of some acronyms to remember when to use ser and estar. So for ser, remember doctor. For estar, remember place. So let's talk about what each of these letters stand for. So D is going to stand for description. The first O will be occupation, so somebody's occupation. So if you're a teacher, a student would also be included in that. So a lot of times we'll see sentences with saying, I am a student, and just kind of associate student as occupation. So like teacher, doctor, whatever somebody is doing as their job, and we also will include student with that. Characteristic for C. So description and characteristic are pretty much the same thing. If you're describing somebody's appearance, characteristic, maybe what their personality is like. So kind of description and characteristic, think of that as somebody's physical appearance or also could be their personality traits, kind of what they're like as a person. T is going to stand for time. We share the time in Spanish. And the next O is going to be origin. So anytime you're communicating where you or where somebody else is from, then we're going to use ser. And the last one, R, is relationship. So if I said, he is my brother, or I am her mom, I am talking about relationships, a lot of times with family related words, we're going to use ser. So let's just write down 3 example sentences, kind of just using a couple of these points here. So the first one, let's kind of look at kind of a description or characteristic. So if I said, la mujer es inteligente, so the woman is intelligent, I'm describing her. Notice I'm using es. Another example, let's say with time. If I want to say it is 7:30, If you think back to when you learned time, remember we have those expressions like son las or es la. So son las 7:30. It is 7:30. Another example, let's look at relationship. How about el chico es mi hermano? The boy is my brother. Okay, so those are the reasons when we would use ser, description, occupation, characteristic, time, origin, relationship. For estar, let's look at when we would use this form. So P is going to stand for position. So if you were saying, for example, the book is on top of the table, or maybe the tree is next to the school, kind of describing where different things are, you would use estar. L is location. So similar to that, but if I want to say, for example, our high school is in Monticello, in that city, then I would use estar. For A, we're going to use action. This is actually something that you will learn in Spanish 2. We're not going to be talking about this for Spanish 1. So we're just going to write it out just so we have our word that we can use for estar, but don't worry about action. That is something that you'll learn later on in other levels of Spanish. C is condition. So for this one, kind of how are you doing? So if you're saying I'm good or I'm sick, maybe you're sick today, then that would be a condition. And then E, kind of similar to that, is emotion. So happy, sad, mad, tired, however you're feeling, we use estar. And one thing to kind of think about too, if you're kind of comparing these two, estar is used a lot of times for more temporary things. So think of like emotions, conditions, that changes. That always can change. 1 minute you're happy, 1 minute you're sad. Or location or position. Maybe the book is on top of the table and then I move it. So it's underneath the table. That changes. Whereas ser, a lot of times that's kind of think of more permanent type things. For example, like description or characteristic. Um, if you're describing somebody and their personality, then you are looking at if somebody's nice or funny. Usually, somebody's a funny person, they tend to always be funny. Or where somebody's from. I am from Minnesota. That's never going to change. I was born in Minnesota. That is where I am from. Or relationship. He is my brother. He's my brother. That's a relationship that is part of our family tree. So kind of think of it as typically more permanent type scenarios. Obviously, like descriptions. If I said I have brown hair, yes, I could dye my hair blonde and that would change. But think of that kind of as more something that will usually stay the same over a period of time, rather with location, emotion, condition, that changes more rapidly. A couple of examples with estar and some sentences. Let's look at how about el libro está encima de la mesa, the one that I shared when we're taking our notes. The book is on top of the table. Notice I'm using está to say is. Es means is, but I need to use está, that form, because I'm talking about where that book is. Or another example, estamos contentos. We are happy. We are content. That's our emotion. Or Quito está en Ecuador. So the capital is Quito is in Ecuador. So that's where I'm talking about kind of a location of where something is at. So notice that we have our two forms of ser and estar, and we're just kind of paying attention to what we're trying to communicate, and that will let us know when to use each verb. And then one last little helpful hint to keep in mind, a little saying to help us remember when to use ser and estar. Think of this phrase, how you feel and where you are always use the verb estar. So if you're talking about feelings, where you are, always use estar. If it's not how you feel, it's not a location, kind of where you are, then typically it will be ser. So kind of just think of that phrase, how you feel, where you are, always use the verb estar. If it is not one of those two scenarios, then most likely it will be ser.